Debuting in Medarot 8, this rather strange flightless bird type may look unimposing at first glance, but beware your weight when fighting it up close and personal. It is PHL00 Megavex, with a kit of Break Hammer, double mobile boost, biped legs, and the leg ability of Breakneck, which passively buffs leg speed when in heat phase. Now, Megavex is a model that pretty much any season's Medarotter that's been playing longer than, say, a week may perhaps know and love in Medarot S. Love being a relative term in this case. Given that she is available in the permanent banner, this does mean that she has been available right from day one, and if you've been playing longer than a week, you've probably seen her at least 8, 9, 10 times already. But in the right hands, this rather strange bird type can be rather imposing, given her rather interesting use in buffing her base speed. Break Hammer, and her only form of actual combat, and her only heavy part in the build, is a gravity attribute melee skill that is best known for its ability of dealing heavy punish. This means that if the opponent is holding anything more than 2 or more heavy parts, they are absolutely going to be feeling the pain. Whereas if they're only holding 1 or none, probably not as much. It is also worth noting that Break Hammer as a gravity skill does have a multiplier tied to success relative to the Metaforce charge. So if she doesn't have the greatest ability of hitting right away, 1 or 2 charges of Metaforce may fix this moderately well. Mobile Boost on both arms is a support-based skill that, once activated, will buff the base mobility of herself and all allies by about 50% as long as the effect remains active. Now, originally prior to the 3.2 patch, this was only a 20 to 30% buff, which honestly wasn't all that noticeable. But 50% is certainly bigger than 30%, and that can definitely come as a make or break, especially with a lot of slower bots that rely on that extra speed to keep up. It is also worth noting that Breakneck does actually help build her even faster than she is initially, just by base stats, primarily with how Breakneck works. In terms of armor, as expected of females, she is kind of light in that department, so she's not packing a lot of very high HP. In terms of that, her head is packing just barely 30-50, arms at about 2300 each, and her legs at just barely 30-50 as well. Means that a good hit will arguably take down this flightless bird quicker than what you'd really want if she's on your side of the table. Plus, base power really isn't all that high with her head either, at just barely over 800 in this case. But again, because she is relying on the opponent using more than one heavy part, this is somewhat negligible to a point. Her leg stats are honestly kind of strange too, but given her boost with Mobile Boost and with Breakneck, she honestly may have a little bit more of a performance going for her than I would originally give credit. A base mobility of 656 is kind of on that lower end cusp of where biped legs really want to be, but this also is not factoring in Mobile Boost or Breakneck as I mentioned. A melee resist of 1211 is really nice though, as she can definitely hold her own up close and personal much better than what you think. But a shoot resist of 639 is definitely not great, as this means that she will be taking a lot of punish damage from that opponent in the trees taking pot shots at her. An evade of 1155 though is actually quite nice, as this does mean that she will have a moderately good chance at dodging fairly low success attacks or even ailments to keep them off her tail. This all being said, as a pure set score, I do sadly still have to rate Megavex a pretty flat 4 out of 10. Even though her skills individually can be made and put to very good use, as a kit, she focuses very heavily on boosting her speed, and with Break Hammer being her only form of combat, once she uses up all her head uses, she's just kinda there, not really bringing anything else to the table. As mixed parts though, I do have to rate her higher at a 5 out of 10. Break Hammer is always a very good skill you can make use of anywhere, despite it being a heavy part, especially for the reason of having that heavy punish on the team just in case you need it. Legs with Breakneck aren't too shabby though, even with the low base speed to kind of counteract this, and Mobile Boost, even though you generally don't want to use boosts like this on arms, in the rare case you probably need it, such as say a super invasion that requires a certain amount of support skills in the team, she's here, she can kind of make herself useful, but don't expect her to be anything particularly game-breaking or powerful.